Tortured Poets Department. Taylor's new album has been out for about 2 weeks now, which is really exciting. So after listening to it, like just the first time all the way through, like what were your original thoughts?
Okay, so actually, I got the tracks early. So but it was different because they were sent to me as audio files. So it was the night before that it was actually released. So that was my first listening through. And my initial thoughts were I got these tracks from a friend of a friend who got them from like Reddit. So I was unsure if they were the actual tracks. So I was listening to them and I initially was just kind of like, what is this? And I convinced myself, because some of the lyrics, I was just a little thrown off for what Taylor normally does. And I thought, okay, so this can't be the real album. And then when it came out, it was the real album. And so I kind of had to take a minute. I mean, my initial first song, which held over from when I was listening to just the random tracks, was But Daddy, I Love Him. And that maintained. But initially, my initial reaction was I didn't really love the album. How about you?
Yeah, I would say it didn't sound like a Taylor album when I first listened to it.
Yeah.
My first favorite song was probably Down Bad.
Okay.
Because I just felt like that one was like the most like different. But I would say it just like, it felt like it was all one really long song, and I didn't really like notice anything like different between them when I first listened to the full thing. But then at 2 a.m. she came out with the
anthology.
No, it was the
rest of the
other 15 songs.
Yeah.
And then I listened to those, not all of them because it was late, and then I listened to those, and then I started noticing like there's different production between the songs, and then it took me a second. It probably took me like 3 days, but then it became like really, really, really one of my favorite albums that she's released.
Yeah, same. It took me multiple days actually to get through all the songs because I would get stuck on the songs that I liked, and then I wanted to keep listening to them. So it was like the whole weekend that I was listening to the album, and as I listened and re-listened and then started catching different lyrics and different references to different things. So I've always been a lyrics person. So, you know, some people like songs for the beat. I enjoy songs for the lyrics and listening to what they're saying. And so the more that I listened to the lyrics and listened to what she was saying and connecting it to her other works as well, I started to realize what this album was doing. And I think that's one of the great things about Taylor is that she has visions, and what she wanted to do with this album, I don't think it was to necessarily, it wasn't for the audience, it was for her.
Yeah.
And it was for her moving on from her past relationship and then into her rebound and then moving on from that. And so kind of it was interesting to see that story because I don't think anyone was expecting it to be so much focused on Maddie Healy versus Joe Alwyn.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was surprised with how many Maddie Healy songs there were on the album. Everyone going into it thought it was going to be a Joe Alwyn album, but there's even some Travis Kelce songs on there also, which I was surprised by because they've only been together for like 9 months. But no, I totally agree. The album definitely was not targeted towards like for her audience. It was more for her, but I also feel like she's gotten so big that she doesn't really, her fans are going to love whatever she puts out. And so she knows that her songs are going to make the charts no matter what. And so she wasn't really releasing something. It was different from everything else that she's ever released. And it was more like a reflection on her past and how she's moving on and how she like dealt with her situations and stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think too that one of the great things of, like you mentioned, her fans are going to listen no matter what. And she's entered the point in her career where she can stray from mainstream pop and those expectations, and she can just make art for what it is, and she's going to have a following. And I think it's interesting to see people's initial reactions, because most of the people that I spoke to about the album initially had the same reaction as me, that you were caught off guard. But I was caught off guard with Folklore.
Yeah.
That whole thing, that whole drop was crazy because obviously middle of pandemic, but that didn't sound like her. And just the way that she's over time reinvented herself from the country artist that she was, entering into the pop scene and then continuing to change. And I think that's great because she's been in the industry for 17 years, and so she should get to make the art that she wants to make and have it reflect like what she's going through versus pandering to, the population that's listening to her and trying to fit into that box.
Yeah, moving on, do you think that the Tortured Poets Department's going to be added to the Eras Tour set list?
I do. I already think, yes, I do. I am jealous that I do not have tickets for the second half of the Eras Tour. I went in Chicago.
Yeah, I did too.
And it was great. It was fantastic, except at that point I was jealous because we didn't get a ton of Speak Now.
Yeah.
And now we're not going to get the Torture Poets Department.
Yeah.
I think she'll add stuff. I don't know what songs she has to do. I can do it with a broken heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has to do that song. I mean, just the production of that song and listening in how the counts are in her ear.
And it's all about the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and it's just actually seeing this timeline play out now too, because I think that she and Joe broke up way earlier than I think we all knew.
Yeah, I agree.
And what night did you go to Eras?
I went night 2.
Okay, me too. So she did the...
I Don't Want to Live Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was all annoyed by that because I was like, why are we getting this song? I don't get it. But then I felt bad because she was crying during it. And I think at that point, that was right around the time that she and Matt Healy actually broke up.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people misconstrued that emotion with, like, Joe.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting to look back at everything and see, her behavior at the concerts. And then, it's just interesting.
Yeah, from my understanding with the album, her and Maddie Healy had been on and off since like 1989.
Yeah.
And then she was with Joe for 6 years, and when her and Joe finally broke off, she ran to Maddie because that was her only chance to. Mm-hmm. And then when it finally didn't work out and they were just done, she was just like devastated because she like felt like she didn't have anyone anymore. But news with her and Joe breaking up went public like beginning of April, I believe, last year. And her first show after news went public was Tampa in Florida. And she has a song on the album called Florida, saying that like Florida's like an escape, or like Florida's where you can go feel free. And so a lot of the fans are saying that she probably was thinking about that while she was performing, because everyone now knew about the breakup, even though it had probably happened like a few months before. But now all the press was asking about it. Everyone was like interested in what was going on, and she just wanted to like move on or whatever. But also at that point she was probably already with Maddie Healy. So I don't know, I just find all these like little clues in the album really interesting.
And I totally agree. I mean, even the progression of the songs. So if we end with Midnights and Hits Different, they talk about is that you at the door, or are they coming to take me away?
Yes.
And then in Fortnight, which is actually the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
14th night, Midnights is 13 Sleepless Nights, she starts being locked up.
Yes.
And so Midnights, I think, is more of a breakup album than we ever anticipated it to be, talking about her relationship with Joe, and we're entering like the moving on, the rebound. We're on the 14th day, like the fortnight. And then the progression of the songs, like Fresh Out the Slammer, like the first person I'm going to call, it's Maddie Healy. We've had this on again, off again. You've been on the back of my mind. And then it goes directly from there to Florida. And like you said, with her first tour, or her first stop of the tour after being in Florida. And so I think that this album really, she's been working on it for so much longer than we've known, and just the references and feeling like, you know, she's bored in the relationship with Joe. She's finally breaks that off, and then she goes into this rebound, and the public has, I think another thing too with But Daddy I Love Him isn't just like Maddie Healy's not good for me, but she's annoyed with everyone who is has an opinion about her relationship with Maddie, and saying to the public and her fans, like, butt out. This is my relationship, and I don't want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
And because there was a lot of backlash with that. And, I mean, I'm glad that they're not together anymore. But.
Yeah. Going back to what you said about, like, Midnights, the last song on Midnights was Dear Reader.
Yeah.
And the Tortured Poets department's all, like, the typewriter, like, whatever. And so a lot of conspiracies that I've seen have been that Midnights was foreshadowing the Tortured Poets department. And since Midnights is that night, like you mentioned with the fortnight, like 14th day, but I've also heard things saying that the Tortured Poets department would be like the morning after that midnight. And then also she released You're Losing Me on Midnights, but it was like a vault track of Midnights. And that was like You're Losing Me, and then the Tortured Poets department's like You've Officially Lost Me. And so it was like kind of like the different sequence of events as they were slowly breaking up. And I don't think during Midnights her and Joe had broken up yet, but she was like mentally detached from the relationship. She like mentally just was, she was mentally not there, but physically like they were still together. They still got like seen together in public, or maybe that's when they started like having problems. But something else that I've noticed was Reputation was her first album that she released after her hiatus, but also when she and Joe first got together. And a lot of the beats, I guess, as Reputation, and the lyrics are different, but they have similar intros, or they have like matching Reputation songs. I think it was Call It What You Want is like similar to So Long London, but then she also wrote London Boy, and so Call It What You Want and London Boy were both targeted towards Joe, and then obviously Joe's British, and so then So Long London was kind of her farewell to Joe and moving on to this like new chapter in her life.
Yeah, I heard that too in the music and the beats, and her calling back to imagery from previous albums. And I think that's really cool. I think that's something that she does really well, is she makes these connections. And I think that how you referenced that she and Maddie were on again, off again for, you know, since 1989, like 10 years, how looking back, some of the songs in her back catalog from even Folklore and Evermore, we thought that that was a lot of fiction, and I think some of that stuff can be then connected, like the song, I read something about like the song Cardigan, and that Maddie is the cardigan under her bed that she wants to pull out, and he's still there even though she's in this relationship with someone else. Yeah,
and there was the whole Folklore love triangle with Betty, Augustine, and James. And that's kind of what I've seen, is that that wasn't necessarily fiction as she announced that it was. But what I find even more interesting was that she mentioned that Joe was the one that helped her write Folklore, and Joe also helped her write Evermore because they were in quarantine. And so I just find that really interesting. Maybe there's some stuff that we don't know that he knew or that was just hidden. Yeah, I don't know.
It is. I mean, it is all like you could really deep dive into this for quite a long time. So there's a lot to unpack there, but
Another thing I noticed, so she's done Lover, and then she released Evermore, and then she released 2 of her re-recording albums, and then she released Midnights, and then she released 2 more re-recording albums, and she has 2 left, and now she's released her 11th album, Tortured Poets Department. So she has Reputation and Debut to re-release and re-record. So what are your thoughts? Do you think Reputation's coming next? Do you think Debut's coming next?
I definitely think Reputation's coming next. I think she's going to end with Debut because that's her name.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's no way she could have planned her relationship with Joe to end, but it's just listening to Reputation after getting Tortured Poets and Midnights and everything that's transpired is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
And also to hear the vault tracks from that time, especially since she had, been in, I don't want to say seclusion, but she had been away from the public eye since 1989 and was, that was her big comeback. And so I'm excited, but I definitely think she's ending on Taylor Swift, or Debut, and I'm interested about what she's gonna do after.
Yeah, I am too. I also think that Reputation's coming next, not only because it was kind of getting hinted at in the Tortured Poets, but I saw something actually this morning where in different songs, So High School, I think, was one of the songs where there's countdowns of like one line she says like 3 something, and then she says 2, and then she says 1, and it's kind of like the infamous countdown in like Delicate, and countdowns in Reputation. Obviously, it's a fan favorite album, but also she released, that was her first album that she released after her and Joe officially went public. And now that her and Joe have been away for some time, but now she has Travis, which she could like make Reputation about Travis now instead of Joe, because it is kind of like a love album. But also what I did notice was there's a song called Thank You Amy on Tortured Poets, which it's spelled different, and there's some capitalized letters that spell out Kim, which obviously everyone knows about her and Kanye's drama, and how part of her hiatus was because Kim was calling her like a snake on Twitter and was saying some really harmful things. But that snake is also what inspired Reputation, because Reputation's now like, its main theme is like the snake and the comeback and her saying like, I don't care if you don't like me, like this is who I am, whatever. And so that was also like a clue that I noticed towards Reputation, is maybe this isn't not directed towards Kim and Kanye like the first Reputation was, but this is now towards like herself and her fans and people that are saying negative stuff about her on social media. That's gonna happen regardless, and she's the #1 artist in the world. But I just feel like this time around Reputation's gonna have a different meaning than it did the first time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about her re-recording everything, is that she can make those albums current. I think that making it current is something that, I mean, I've been a fan since Debut, so I've followed her, but I think one of the great things about the re-records is she's made her back catalog current, and some people are visiting it for the first time. So all of a sudden, she has all of her 17 years of work that is new and current, and people are listening, and she's getting new followers and fans. But with the Thank You Amy, I just, I initially thought it was about Kim, but I don't know if it is.
Yeah, I saw something where there was a picture, or she was in an interview or something, and there was a whiteboard behind her, and there was someone that said, like, Amy. It was like a signature, and it was spelled the same way. So I've taken it as maybe that was someone she didn't get along with, like, in high school or when she was first starting her music career. And I don't know if she highlighted Kim letters to make everyone suspicious or to throw everyone off, but maybe it had, like, a double meaning, because it was kind of, it reminded me a lot of her song on Speak Now called Mean, where she was like, you are gonna bully me no matter what, but I'm still gonna do my thing. And that was kind of like the same meaning that I heard from Thank You, Amy.
Yeah, and I think that it definitely could be in reference to Kim. I saw the Amy thing as well. I just think, I also am thinking maybe is Karlie Kloss a bit, just because of the way in which she says, you know, well, I feel like I'm torn between Kim and Karlie. Kim because, and for the same reason, because for both of them, for both Kim and Karlie, without them, she wouldn't be where she is now. Like, without Kim, she wouldn't have made Reputation. She wouldn't have had that reinvention of her music and herself. Him and Kanye and that whole scandal, and also, yeah, I mean, she wouldn't be where she is today. She wouldn't have reinvented herself in the way that she did with Reputation. But without Karlie Kloss, she wouldn't have re-recorded.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't be where she is today. I mean, she wouldn't have made all that back catalog current. The Eras Tour wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Karlie and her relationship with Scooter Braun and her husband's connection with the investment firm that bought her masters is what sparked the re-record. So I think that Thank You, Amy is a powerful song because of every, like you said, all the meanings it can have, just back from, you know, we all know she was bullied in high school, and everything that she's experienced and how she's really internalized that and put it into her work. And I think that's a powerful song for anyone listening too, who's experiencing that kind of negative behavior in their lives, and to listen to that and understand that, like, Taylor Swift dealt with that too.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I agree. And also, like you said, with Karlie and Scooter, how she had to, like, re-record all of her albums, but she didn't just re-record and re-release them, she also added all of her vault tracks, and which were songs that she wrote at the time, but they just didn't make the album. I've heard from a few, from TikTok,
the news,
that fans are wondering if she's gonna possibly release vault tracks for albums that were her own albums, like Folklore, Evermore. A lot of people have said, though, that Evermore, the album, were, like, the Folklore vault tracks, but in my opinion, I feel like they're both slower songs and, like, more focused on lyrics, but I feel like they have two completely different vibes. Like, I don't feel like Evermore was really tied to Folklore. Folklore is more, like, storytelling, like, folk songs, and it's more, Evermore, I feel like, is more personal. She has that song about her grandmother, Marjorie, and she just, especially during the tour, the two sets are completely different. Folklore is more, like, in the woods, and Evermore is kind of not haunted, but it has a more, like, fall type of feeling. And I just feel like that's just not the case, but maybe for Lover, that there would be some, she released All of the Girls You've Loved Before, which was kind of like a Lover vault track. There's Soon You'll Get Better, which is, again, is kind of like a Lover vault track. You're Losing Me, which is Midnight's vault track. But I don't know, I've heard some things where she's going to be releasing some vaults for her albums that were not with Scooter.
Yeah.
But I've also heard that she might, I haven't heard, but there's been some assumptions made that she is counting down until her 13th album. Obviously 13 is like her lucky number. And so after she just released her 11th album, Tortured Poets, again, to what I was saying about the So High School counting down to Reputation, it could also be counting down to her 13th album because that was her 11th. Then she's going to probably release her next 2 re-records, so Debut and Reputation, then her 12th, and then maybe she ends up stopping or taking a break after her 13th. She is like in her mid-30s and she doesn't have any children. She's not married, but we don't know what the future holds for her. If her and Travis are like getting serious, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I wonder what that's gonna change, because I've heard a lot of things she says on tour all the time that she never wants to stop. She doesn't plan on stopping anytime soon. She loves what she's doing, but she's been going nonstop for the past 17 years. So I just wonder when that break is coming.
I know, and I agree. I feel like after the Eras tour, I mean, I don't want her to take a break.
Yeah.
I love her music, but the way in which she's been just pumping it out is not sustainable. She's been working very hard. I mean, oh my gosh, those routines on the Eras tour, I'm thinking like, oh, geez, what did you have to do to have this stand-em-up for 3 hours? I could barely stand up for the whole show. Anyway, it's not sustainable for her, and I think all of the points that you said are valid. I think that after Eras, and her 2 re-records, I think she might take a break after this. I don't want that to happen, necessarily, but, like what she's doing is not sustainable. And honestly, I couldn't even believe that the Tortured Poets, was released at all. I mean, where does she come up with ideas for all of this?
Yeah. I mean, she was on tour the whole time she was writing it. She was so busy. Yeah. And from what I heard, or what I saw, she talked about it, she would run on the treadmill for 3 hours and sing all of her songs so that she wouldn't run out of breath when she was doing the choreography.
See,
I just thought
insane.
That was crazy. I can barely run like 800 meters. That was insane for her to do. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think that she's in a really good place right now. I think that I'm excited to see the way in which she incorporates the Tortured Poet songs into the tour. I got to get my hands on some tickets. My friend is going to Dublin, and I initially turned her down on that, and now I'm kicking myself. So I was like, oh no, I went in Chicago, it's fine, give it to someone who hasn't been. But now with this, so Speak Now is one of my favorite albums. So the fact that I didn't get to see that full set is a bummer to me. I mean, we have the movie. So I'm interested to see where that goes, but yeah, I mean, I think she's kind of entering a period of time. I think that that's kind of one of the things with the Tortured Poets is that goes back to the fact that I think right now, I mean, she is outside of the pop star pool. I mean, she's swimming on her own. She is top of the top. And now I don't know if we're necessarily going to see her take a full break, but I think we're going to see her be making more music for herself.
I agree.
So, and that's kind of what the Tortured Poets started off at, is like we said in the beginning, this isn't music that she made for, just the typical pop star audience. This is stuff she made for herself. It's her processing her 2 relationships, really. It starts with Joe, and then after So Long London, we get focus on the journey of Matt Healy, what that was, and then moving on from that.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that's great about Taylor is that she uses her art to process her feelings. I mean, we've seen it from the start of all of her music. I mean, All Too Well 10-minute version. And that gets me to think of the manuscript. We haven't talked about the manuscript. And I think the manuscript is one of her saddest songs.
I agree.
that she's ever written, and how that ends the 31 songs, and how, you know, she says these stories aren't mine anymore. I've used my art, I've used my talent to process all of this, and I've given you guys my stories, and now these stories are ours.
Yeah.
And the manuscript, that was a song that I didn't get to until like days after listening, because you know, you're going through everything. And then when I finally got there, I was, ooh.
Yeah. No, I think the whole album, I mean, it obviously was not meant for her fans. It was meant for her, but there were definitely some songs that incorporated messages that she wanted to send out to her fans. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, obviously very upbeat, but if you listen to the lyrics, it's, again, like the backtracks, like her earpiece during the show, and she's saying that, like, she's still going out there every night. She hasn't canceled a show due to her own personal problems, only, like, severe weather and stuff, but yeah, the fans keep saying that they want more stuff. She's released like 9 albums in the past 5 years or something crazy, which is unheard of. But all the fans saying like, when's Reputation coming? We want more, whatever. But she's done so much more than any other artist, and all of this while dealing with a huge 6-year breakup, and she's getting hate from media, especially now that her and Travis are together. When she was going to the football games, now she has this mob of people that dislike her because of her screen time at the football games. But yeah, I feel like there were a lot of secret meanings behind all of the songs. And another one was like So High School, which I really, obviously it's one of my favorites because like, I'm in high school, but it was, what it reminded me of was kind of like back to Fearless, when she was releasing like You Belong With Me, and that was like kind of like all of her high school era, and how it was very much like she's the girl on the bleachers, like not the cheerleader, but it's like so stereotypical for like the like nerdy smart girl to like be dating like the quarterback or like the star football player, and now in her 30s she's kind of like back to that stereotype that she never got to experience.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. She didn't have a normal high school experience. And so I think for her dating Travis, it's like she's living those high school dreams that she never had.
Yeah.
And also what's so interesting, too, about So High School, I love that song, too. And one of the reasons why is it's written, and the way it's written, and the bop of it echoes to, I mean, Taylor and I are roughly the same age. So it echoes to what the music was like in that era.
Yeah.
And so she connects it back to like her high school days, not only with, you know, the situations that are talked about in that song, but also the style of music that it is. And again, that's what I love about her. Like, nothing is done without intention. Everything is very intentional. Nothing is a mistake. I mean, even as Guilty as Sin, when she says, she references like writing mine on my upper thigh, that echoes back to the song Mine from Speak Now. And so everything, like, nothing is done on purpose or on accident. Everything's done on purpose. And that's what I love about her, is she's so careful about everything. And I think that's one of the great things about having her back catalog being re-released, is that that's top of mind for everyone too when you're listening, because you're listening to Speak Now and Fearless probably, you know, within days of listening to Torture Poets, and so you get to experience it all together, and I love that.
Another thing that I just caught while you said, she is very intentional with how she drops things, not only with her Easter eggs that everyone knows about, but something else I noticed, on the songs that were written about Maddie Healy, they were very much produced in, like, the 1975, like, manner. Like, also, like, the titles, But Daddy, I Love Him, in parentheses, no, really, or, like, no, but Daddy, I can
fix him.
But Daddy, I Love Him it's also very much produced in 1975 way. But I Can Fix Him, No, Really, I Can. In parentheses, that is, like, the 1975, like, that is the title of, like, they have all of their songs, like, titled that way. and the production is very much like something that Maddie Healy would let out, and Jack Antonoff, who helps Taylor on everything since like 1989, also helped Maddie Healy on his most recent album. So he has like the secrets that no one else knows about how he produced that, and I'm guessing that maybe he helped Taylor like incorporate some of that into those songs about Maddie.
Well, and one thing I heard too, and you make a good point, is that this album was not necessarily supposed to go the way it did.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't, when she started recording it, and there was footage of her and Maddie exiting the recording studio with Jack Antonoff during this time. I think the initial intention was, because even at the end of But Daddy, I Love Him, it is the wedding.
Yeah.
And everyone's come around, and even her dad loves him. And like right now with the Travis thing, in my mind, it's, oh, but now I'm with Travis, everyone loves him. But I think intentionally, or the initial intention of this album was that she was still with him.
Yeah.
And because life happens and things change, and so I think they initially might have been collaborating a little together on the album, and it is also so interesting the way that each other pops into each other's lives. And like the references to the lamppost. There's in the 1975 set, there's a lamppost. She references the lamppost in Folklore, in Peter. Again, echoing back to what was going on. I mean, were she and Joe really together that whole time? I mean, what's happening? I mean, we've clearly kept, you know, he was the woulda, coulda, shoulda, and then she had a chance to make it work, and she said, ooh.
Yeah.
I guess this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So, yeah, like, I really think that this album initially was supposed to be to her fans, hey, I'm, you know, the process of getting over Joe, getting into a relationship with this man that she had left a light on for years and years, and thinking, oh my gosh, timing, it finally works out. And then, you know, it all went wrong.
Yeah. And also something that I noticed in the second half of the album that she released, like you'd mentioned Peter, there was also Cassandra. There was also Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus.
Yes.
And a lot of people have said that maybe those were possible names of her children that she would think of. Like, if her and Joe possibly were thinking of having children. And Bigger Than the Whole Sky in Midnights was also, a lot of people mentioned, like, possibly about having a child. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I definitely think that she has said that she wants kids. Yeah. And so, I mean, Bigger Than the Whole Sky to me was a very, very sad song. And I think that that's another thing, is that even if it isn't necessarily about, because people have said it's about her, or have said that it's, you know, about potential miscarrying a baby and everything like that. And if it wasn't her who that happened to, the fact that she can create a song for people who are going through that and experiencing that and can connect to that in that way, I think that just shows what a wonderful songwriter she is, and how she connects, and just, she's an emotional person and a sensitive person, and, you know, songwriting helps her process. And I do think that, I mean, I hope Taylor gets what she wants. I hope that she gets to have a family and kids. I think she deserves it. She's worked really hard, and I mean, we'll see if Travis Kelce is the one. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't spent too much time with that song, but yeah.
Like you just said about her like writing songs about other people's lives, something that came to mind was the Speak Now vault track When Emma Falls in Love, about Emma Stone, I believe. And I agree. I think it's like amazing how she's able to like incorporate her friends' emotions and what she's witnessed as like being by their side for however many years. And she, in that song, she says how when Emma falls in love, she's like just like everything is about that person, and she does everything she can to make them happy, and she's just, it's like Taylor's like in awe of like Emma and how she's just so involved with that person. And I mean, maybe I'm assuming it's about Emma because her name's in the title and they've been friends for however many years, but that's just, I mean, that's like kind of how it is for everyone's best friend. Like when you see one of your best friends like find their person, you just automatically just feel so happy for them because like you see how happy they are, and you like you feel that they're deserving of that. And you just, I feel like Taylor's just like a great friend to all of her people that are in her like inner circle, and she just seems like she's always so supportive, and she's always like at the award shows the one that's like standing up dancing for all of the performers, and she always claps for everyone no matter who wins, and she's just like a great person. So I can tell that she would definitely be a really good friend with like her songwriting, and how she is able to like talk about her friends without really fully giving everything about their personal life away.
Yeah, and I think that is another thing too that is just so great about her, is that, I mean, she obviously is very successful on her own, but the way in which she supports other people, I mean, to go back to when she was receiving her award for Best Album and Kanye got up on stage and said, you know, Beyonce deserved this.
Yeah.
And she really, that moment, could have become a person who's like, no, like, I'm out for myself. You know, I'm protecting me. I'm protecting myself. But instead of that, she is supportive of other artists. She's supportive of her friends. She's like definitely always cheering everyone else on.
Yeah.
And I think that's so fantastic that, you know, that is a traumatizing experience. She was 19 years old when that happened. And for an artist like Kanye to come up there, and honestly, that was her first album of the year. That should have been a special moment for her, and it was completely ruined. But Beyonce let her come up when she won an award later that night and give her speech, which is fantastic that Beyonce did that. But the fact that between that, all the hate that she gets from the press, I mean, early on, it was all negative, negative, negative. And the way that she has still been a support to other people, other artists, does not have the attitude of, I had to go through this, so all these other young artists have to go through this. Instead, she's giving them opportunities to open for her, to do all these things. She's very supportive. And I just think that is just a trait of hers that I really respect, because she has taken all these negative experiences and she's processed them through her art, but it hasn't made her a negative person. And I think that's something everyone can kind of have a bit of a takeaway from is, you know, obviously things aren't going to go your way, but it's the way you react to them that is the most important thing. And she's been a great demonstration of that.
Yeah. What I found like really disturbing was when that whole Kanye thing happened. She had previously said that she was a huge fan of Kanye and that she really looked up to him. And so to have like one of your role models come up and like strip that moment away from you probably really, really hurt her. But I mean, she did handle it maturely. Obviously, she released Reputation like 9 years later or something. But yeah, I mean that's just sad. But she handled it well. The following year she won her first Grammy, and like she just, she's ended up having like a really, really successful music career. So also everyone saying that like Kanye made her famous, or she was up winning an award when he went on stage. Like
Exactly. I mean, she was winning Album of the Year, so a few people listened to it
yeah.
prior. I mean, yeah. So
I'm not gonna go into that, but
There's
Taylor
so
has more
much-
awards than he does.
there's so much to unpack with the Kanye and then the Kim and Kanye and then everything after, and it's like, anyway.
Yeah. Another thing that I just find really funny is that North, so their daughter, is a Taylor Swift fan, and
Yeah.
all of the Kardashian children are Taylor Swift fans. They're wearing like their merchandise around the house. They're recording and posting TikToks with Taylor songs on them. So that's kind of just like Taylor's clapback without even intentionally really doing anything. So they're always hearing her music around the house, and that's just, I don't know. She really is a mastermind, like she says in Midnight.
She is a mastermind, and I do feel bad that North wasn't able to go to the Eras tour because of her mother's behavior. So that's too bad for those kids when all of those other children were, but more tickets for everyone else.
Yeah.
I think that for me, there's a lot more that we can talk about with the Tortured Poets Department. I think for me, though, it's just how every time I listen to it, I pick up something else and I like it a little more. And to start off with the experience of getting the tracks and thinking, this can't possibly be Taylor Swift, to understanding her music a little bit more and what she's trying to say through the story, and then also realizing that this record wasn't for the listeners, it was for her. She was processing end of two relationships, really, and moving on from those things, and the fact that she gave us the opportunity to learn a little bit more about it. The way that she uses music to kind of make her statements and say, okay, so you thought that I was having the time of my life for the Eras tour, and really I was just broken inside.
Yeah.
And the fact that she can put on a smiling face and still do it, and then letting us learn about everything that she was going through during that time.
Yeah.
I think it's just the vulnerability in that, I think, is something to really just admire. And again, she's fantastic. So I'm excited to continue to listen to the album and to get more out of it. And I'm excited. I definitely think she's ending on debut.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for those vault tracks.
Me too. I'm excited to see what she possibly could have written when she was in high school. I'm shocked that she still has them. I mean, that was like so long ago, but yeah, I'm very excited to see what's coming next for Taylor and what the fans are going to be fed.
Yes.
And
and I'm excited to see what happens with Travis Kelce, honestly. I'm like, it seems like things are going well, but, and the thing I love too is, she's so much more public with the relationship than she was with her relationship with Joe. And I know Joe was a very private person, but also, I think, between the pandemic and everyone in general going into hiding, and then just the fact that I've heard that he's just a private person, he doesn't like the spotlight, but then to be dating Taylor Swift and be like annoyed when people ask you questions, you're not dating the right person. It's, why aren't you excited about, instead of, I feel like he always was like, oh, she's more famous than me.
Travis definitely lets her have the spotlight. I mean, like, he's very, very well known, obviously. He's a great football player, but he always, like, puts her first. He never really shuts down any press questions about her, and he shows her off. He took her to Coachella. They sat in the front. Like, it was just... Travis is definitely more, like, her kind of person, I think. He will, like, lead her. There's, like, pictures of him opening the door for her, like, when they're getting out of the car and all of these other things. I just feel like he's the type of person that she's kind of been looking for these past like 17 years where she's been in and out of different relationships, and she finally found someone that's willing to that knows she's Taylor Swift but is also like respectful of that.
Yeah, he's not trying to make her feel small or anything like that. I think it's also helpful that they both, you know, are great in their own worlds.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he's just genuinely excited to be at the Eras Tour, to be with her, to be that person for her. I mean, he's excited about it. He's not, you know, oh, too many questions about Taylor, ask me about me. And the fact that she outwardly supports him as well. And as annoying as it is that for a 3-hour football game, she's getting 30 seconds of airtime, you know, she's doing the same thing for him. And I think that mutual support is so important for a strong relationship just in general. So
yeah. Well, I'm very glad we got to debrief the Tortured Poets department and deep dive into Taylor's past relationships with Joe, Maddie, and Travis. But yeah, I'm just excited to see what's next.
Me too. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.